I'm a big fan of do what is right for you.
Yep.
Do what's right for your business. There's a lot of envy and desire, I think, in watching people grow their businesses, or they post on social media about how big their business is or how rich they are. And I think it detracts a little bit from, well, do what's right for you. And if you want to do a few deals a year and make a steady income and then kick back the rest of the year, that's okay. You don't have to have a multi-million-dollar business and teams and roles and people. Just do what makes you happy, what you feel is right. If you want a small team, have a small team. If you want a big, huge team, have a big, huge team.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Probate House Guy podcast. I'm Brad Woodall, the Probate House Guy. Today we've got another real estate investor guest on the podcast, taking a little bit of a break from the probate attorney episodes that we've been doing. And today I've got my buddy Luke Winter from the Great White North of Minnesota on the podcast today. How are you doing today, Luke?
Hey, I'm doing well, Brad. Glad we could connect today.
So why don't you tell us a little about yourself? I know you're a corporate refugee like me, and then you made your way into the real estate space. So why don't you give us a little background on yourself?
Yeah, no doubt. So, I'm a corporate refugee. My background is mechanical engineering. I worked in oil and gas for about 12, 13 years, mostly with one company. And, that career taught me a lot about business and investing besides just engineering, and which I'm very fortunate for. And it was a great career path. It was something I was very dedicated towards, but it wasn't something I saw myself doing for the next 20, 30 years. All the way through retirement. And I kind of thought to myself, hey, if I don't want to do this for 20 more years, should I do it for 2 more years or 2 more days? And it started to get that itch for, hey, I got to do something more entrepreneurial. I've been doing some real estate investing on the side, some flips, wholesale deals, some apartment investing, but I was gainfully employed and wasn't looking for a second job. So while I knew the lingo of real estate investing and had done some myself, I didn't really lean into it as a plan to replace my full-time income or as a full-time career. However, I got corporate refugee syndrome or burnout, whatever you want to call it.
The itis.
Well, the Canadian, like I feel like there's a little bit of common threads in a lot of people here. So I think for me it was, I want to do something where I'm in control. I'm in the driver's seat. The impact and value that I bring is realized in the short term and not over a little raise here, a little bonus here. And,
right.
I wanted to make big changes, make a big splash. So yeah, after 12, 13 years in oil and gas, I left that cold turkey and I actually joined a local real estate investment group, a business that was 3-4 years old. They're starting to scale. They're hitting their stride and they needed a little bit of operations help. And I was actually on their buyers list for wholesale deals. Nice. So the job posting came across, operations manager. We need help doing dashboards. We need help with KPIs and systems and processes. And I was like, man, I can do this in my sleep. Like, sure, this is my background. I like real estate investing. I can't not talk to these guys. And so we went back and forth and basically joined forces and started working for a local home buying operation. And we scaled that up to doing 200 deals a year last year. So really cool milestone and, progression in the business. I'm sure we'll get into more details of some of that. And now I'm focused on giving back to the real estate investment community, helping them with advertising. And so I'm excited to get into that a little bit more. So
cool, man. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, going from corporate, I was there, right? About 2000, this was about 2014. I started listening to like Bigger Pockets podcasts and stuff, right? I started getting ironically, I wanted to flip houses way back in like 2007, bought my first house in '07 and thought I was going to flip that. And then the market crashed and I was stuck in that house for like 8 years. And I kind of like lost interest in real estate for a while. I should have, in hindsight, I wish I would have got in, earlier than I did. But yeah, I was sitting in a cubicle and you're like, I remember one time I was a fraud investigator and did some risk management stuff and was like, I was like, hey guys, I remember that it's like totally pissing me off because one year I got, exceeds expectations, right? On my performance report, I saved that company like $1 million worth of fraud based on what we learned and the investigations I did and the rules I built on stopping transactions and all that stuff. And then the next year, my boss is like, I can't give you an exceeds expectations again. Like HR won't let me do it 2 years in a row. He's like, I want to, but I can't. Like the system won't let me do it. So you only get a 2% raise this year instead of 5%. And, I tried to get Big Boss to approve your bonus at the higher percentage, but, he didn't. And I'm like, what the heck, man? Like for real?
It's just not fair. That's not fair because that's not how the real world works.
Right.
You put money into their pockets and they're like, sorry, this HR policy, it doesn't let me give it back to you.
Right. So then I'm like, I got to do something that's like where my performance is directly proportional to the money I make. Now, if you're in sales, like you can very much do that. Right. Like, but regular corporate jobs. And it's like, I don't want to be in a cubicle all my life. And my son was born and I'm like, you know what? By the time he's in kindergarten, I like want to be out of corporate America. And by the time he was 3, I was out. Like January 2018, I was like, peace. And, I'd already been doing some deals on the side. And I'm like, I'm out of here. I told my wife in 2017, I was like, I'm quitting my job next year. Like, I want to do this full time, So
yeah. It was a little harder for me to leave. I feel like our timelines were pretty close to parallel, but I had very traditional golden handcuffs in the corporate sense.
Sure.
We had pensions. We had every other Friday off, 4 or 5 weeks vacation. It was good. I had nothing to complain about.
Sure.
Other than if I double the value that I contribute to the business, it's impossible for me to double my income. Right. And I just couldn't wrap my head around that. And I struggled with some of that. And I struggled leading teams knowing that that's kind of the box that we're kind of stuck in. And, right. I had seen enough friends be successful in an entrepreneurial way. I'd seen a little bit of success in real estate myself. And I was like, I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm going to figure it out. Now, you got to kind of burn the ships and record and just jump.
You have to jump. And I tell some people like ask me like, okay, how did you quit? And like, gosh, that's so scary to quit. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. It was scary. I left a 6-figure job with a new baby and my wife is not entrepreneurial at all and didn't grow up around that. And she's like, I trust you, but like, this is really scary. Like, how are we gonna, and I went through a few months of like, not as much income, but we kind of came up the other side. And because I was dedicating all of my time and effort to the business, I kind of picked things up off pretty quickly. And then within about a year, got myself on a regular salary where I'm paying myself every month out of the business. And then she's like, okay, I see a steady paycheck now, but to dealing with her and like wanting to just see the money continuing to come in. And she's like, I know you can do it. Right. It's just like, it makes me nervous. And then we had another kid in 2017, so we got 2 little boys. And so, but you just make it happen. You just gotta do it. You got to take the jump and you build your parachute as you go down. And there's going to be a lot of unknowns, but you figure stuff out, like, especially when you see, like, some people might just freak out and cry in the corner, but a lot of people who are definitely entrepreneurial, right?
Yeah.
You feel that pain, you figure stuff out. Like, it's a little bit of a kick in the butt to figure it out, So
Yeah, yeah. And your analogy of, build a parachute on the way down, it is good. And I look at that and it's like, well, bring some supplies, right?
Yes.
Don't just jump and hope
Sure.
for the best and not bring anything along for the ride, or know that you have, I don't have any skill sets. I don't know any accounting. I don't know any investment strategies. I don't know how to manage people. I don't even know where to begin. You might hit the ground pretty hard.
Yes. And I do see people fail that way. Like for me, I had been doing deals on the side for a while, like in 2017, I did 7 deals like on my own, like still working my corporate job. And then the next year I did 18, right? So it's like, boom, I more than doubled the following year just by myself. Like that was before I had employees and all that stuff. So I had already like kind of convinced myself, it's like, I can do this. So let's just do it now. And I'm sure you'd been doing deals on the side. Like you're like, okay, I got this. Like, I think I can figure it out,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think, I had flipped a property. I did wholesaling without even really knowing what it was called.
yeah.
Like, hey, you have a deal. You told me that you want to buy deals. Like, do you want to look at this guy's deal? Like, I got to get paid from one of you guys. How do we want to sort this out?
Right.
Yeah. And come to find out, hey, this is a pretty big industry. There's names and conventional ways to do this and best practices.
Sure. Yeah.
And, but yeah, I mean, you gotta kind of figure it out. My first flip project, I feel like I fell into every single pitfall possible. I also self-managed a rental, a small apartment building, like C-level apartment building. Some might argue it's D-level apartment when I picked it up.
Right.
And so you just learn all the hard lessons. It's like, if this is as bad as it gets and I know nothing, now I know a little bit more, it's got to get better. Like the next deal is going to be better.
Yep.
I'm going to find some momentum. We're going to find wider margin deals, and you learn as you go. But yeah, I remember thinking like, wow, all right. I learned a lot here, and I still made it successful. And that's where you go, I can trust my wings. I can, I can jump and I can start to fly a little bit on my own. And yeah, then you cut the corporate gig. You start a little bit more serious business on the side. Build up that confidence first.
Yeah, for sure. And some people just will never have the confidence to do it. Like, I mean, I know there's people I talked to years ago that like wanted to do it and they're still working corporate jobs today. They just haven't left. And they've just found that maybe they're not as entrepreneurial as they thought. And that's okay. Like I said, my wife is not entrepreneurial at all. She works a corporate job. She loves what she does. She's an agile coach for a very large company, telecommunications company. She loves her job and she doesn't want to leave that. And that's great. If that makes her happy, but the minute she's not happy, when I see her not happy in her job, then I'll help her along to figure the next step out. Right.
Yep. So. Yep. Yeah. I mean, a lot of friends that are still back at my old employer. And sometimes I think, man, they probably got a lot less gray hairs than me.
Yes.
It's like a more steady Eddie.
Yes.
And, sometimes it's like, man, I've been through war.
Right. You have. Yeah. I mean, just this week I've been dealing with a bunch of crap. So yeah, it happens. But you know what? We learn stuff in corporate America. We learn stuff in college. And there's a certain point in entrepreneurial journey where like maybe none of that really matters. And all that matters is just grit and determination. But then you get to the point like you did where you're coming on with an organization who is, hit their stride, like you said, like they're doing a decent amount of deals. And you mentioned, doing 200 deals in a year. And somebody who's maybe just like a hustler would be like, oh my God, I want to do 200 deals in a year. And you and I will both probably say, you sure about that? Like, that requires a lot of systems, processes, people, like time, all of the things, right? So once you kind of elaborate from an operations perspective of like just scaling an organization up in that requires a lot of like managing like a real business, like you did in corporate, right?
And that's the biggest thing that I preach is you have to treat wholesaling like a business. You have to treat flipping like a business. Your rental portfolio, treat it like a business. And I think a lot of people think that I registered my LLC in whatever state you're in. I registered it. Therefore, I'm a business owner and I know how to run a business. And it's like, yeah, maybe by the letter of the law, that's all accurate. But in order to scale and achieve, I would say, whatever your definition of success is, if that's what your target is, then yes, you need to understand a lot of the depths of business, leadership, management, writing SOPs, KPIs, funding sources, managing constraints, coming up with roles, how to hire people, how to interview people,
managing people and personalities.
Yeah, exactly. And you look at wholesalers with a ton of hustle and a ton of grit, and that's great. But I'm thankful for the corporate space also teaching me a lot of those skill sets that are valuable as an entrepreneur. I would not be as successful of an entrepreneur without that background of understanding how to interview people, how to come up with a role. How do you even promote a role like LinkedIn, Indeed? How do you get people to apply for a job? And then what do? You got to think about it from the other side of like, well, that's all the person's also interviewing you. So how are you treating them? Are you getting back to them quickly? Are you treating them with respect? Are you professional? What are all the things that somebody would want in their employer? And that's what they're looking at you for. And so you need to understand all of those ins and outs in order to really successfully scale an operation.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. And then as you scale, like those things change and hats change and people change seats on the bus, as they say. And, you've got to constantly evolve that. And if you're not evolving it and paying attention to it, like it'll get out of hand. And you just got to be very careful of that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've heard a few people talk about this where you reach different thresholds in your business. And I think in real estate investing, you can get pretty far as a solopreneur with a really small team.
Yes.
But you're going to hit a threshold at a certain point, and that's where a lot of people start pulling their hair out. Maybe they're smart and they're looking to hire people and grow some systems and operate it like a true business. But there's always going to be that threshold. And, maybe it's when you've got $1 million in revenue or 3 million in revenue or 5 or 10 or whatever your threshold is, but you got to be aware of that. And I've reached a new plateau or a new threshold. What skills do I not know now? I've kind of stumbled into this position, business owner of $1 million business now. Now what do I go do? And those problems are different. And so having some background or a network of people that you can lean on to overcome those plateaus is super important.
For sure. Yeah. I know plenty of like guys who make $1 million a year as a deal hustler, but they're just hustlers, man. They're out there just hustling and grinding all the time. And maybe they love it and they make a lot of good money. But I look at that and I'm like, I don't want that. But I also personally don't want the big giant business. I want something in between. And it's taken me years of kind of scaling mine up a little bit. And I'm like, no, I kind of like it here. And I kind of like to do these things, actually. These 3 jobs in the business, actually, I enjoy doing. So maybe like I want to do that. And then I'll just delegate out all the rest. We'll do systems, processes, people to manage all the other things that I don't want to do. And in a year or 2 from now, I might decide that I don't want to do that anymore. And then I can have somebody else fill in my seat, and hire somebody for that. Right.
Yes.
So,
yeah. And that's okay. I'm a big fan of do what is right for you.
Yep.
Do what's right for your business. There's a lot of envy and desire, I think, in watching people grow their businesses, or they post on social media about how big their business is or how rich they are. And I think it detracts a little bit from, well, do what's right for you. And if you want to do a few deals a year and make a steady income and then kick back the rest of the year, that's okay. Right. You don't have to have a multi-million-dollar business and teams and roles and people. Just do what makes you happy, what you feel is right. You want a small team, have a small team. If you want a big, huge team, have a big, huge team.
Yep.
But do what is right for you and your family. And that's what's important.
Yeah. And I did that the last couple of years with my business with what happened with my son and all the medical issues and the time involved in that and the time we had to spend with family. I kind of scaled my business back a little bit, kind of put it on autopilot. I'd let some people go and just kind of let it kind of float a little bit till I got through that storm. And now we're on the other side of that storm. And I'm like, okay, I'm in the mental space now to like, let's kind of scale this back up. Like, and now I have a vision and a purpose on how I want to go with this. So let's go. Now I'm in the let's go phase, again.
Yeah.
So,
Good. Yeah. Good for you for having just the mental clarity to realize what's important.
yeah.
And then business growth and scaling over everything, I think it is very counterproductive to long-term success. Because you got to be able to ride the highs and lows. You got to be able to have the fortitude to know, like, hey, this was a little bit of a storm. Like you said, we're going to focus over here. And when it's the right time to focus on scaling the business, we're going to do that. But maybe now's not the right time. And, I think a lot of people need to hear that's okay. That's all right. It's okay to be in that spot. And, focus on where you got to focus for what you value in your life.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned thinking about like what's good for you. Sometimes in life, like if you have a partnership, sometimes you and your partner's visions don't always align in terms of where you want to go. Maybe it did when you first started your business, but then you get further down the road and the partners decide that, okay, maybe I want this and I don't want that. So I know you've kind of been through that, and we're not going to get into all the details about all that, but why don't you kind of touch on that a little bit on, the things to think if someone's in a partnership with someone, maybe it's going really good right now, but in the future things might change. What tips would you have having gone through that to what advice would you give to somebody and things to think about now, versus later and what could happen or what might happen and what you should do?
Yeah. I'm a big advocate for writing stuff down, and I'll get a little bit more specific. But I think a lot of people get nervous when you say write it down. That's like that, like we're carving something into stone, putting it in like permanent. We're going to sign this with blood, but you got to have a starting point, and you got to have some ground rules. And what I mean by that is things like roles and responsibilities. And if you can just write down even a Google Doc that you can go back and change 5 minutes later or tomorrow or next year, but just a starting point of, hey, here's where our responsibilities are. Here's mine. Here's yours. You understand maybe where there's some overlap. Hey, I thought I was doing this. I thought I was supposed to do this. Somebody should be crossing that off, so there's one person responsible for it. Similarly, if you look at it and you go, hey, who's in charge of managing cash flow? We don't have that written on either person's responsibilities. Who should keep tabs on it? And it facilitates a good dialogue on who should cover some of these things that maybe it's not obvious, but once you start writing things down, is who should do what or who is responsible for what. I think it facilitates a good dialogue where you're gonna come out with more clarity and more understanding of what success is going to be for each person in their role and how they can contribute at the highest level. So I would start there for partnerships, even existing partnerships. You go, yeah, this is kind of a mundane activity. We're good. Like, I promise you, I've been through this exercise a lot, and I've always found something that there was some confusion on, there was misalignment on. It's also a great exercise to do with employees, but like basic building blocks of a quality partnership, start there. Start with who's doing what, who's responsible for what, and you can get into as much detail as you want or as little of detail as you want. And I think that's going to prevent friction points and frustration down the road. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect.
No,
because that's not going to define like, hey, I want to go here. You're like, well, I want to go there. That's not going to get covered in that type of conversation. And there's still potential for for misalignment there, or for friction, or just differences of opinion. And again, that's okay.
Yep.
And that can be a very productive conversation to have too. But when you're first starting out in a partnership, or, I just met with some friends last week that were looking for some advice on starting a new business partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was talking to them a little bit about, well, what do you want to get out of it? And one guy's like, I want to, very similar to our corporate refugee conversation. Like, I want my gains to be proportional to what I give. The other guy is like, I want a little bit more of a laid back lifestyle. He's a realtor, working nights, weekends, and has kids at home, wants a little bit more predictable schedule. And so I looked at that. I was like, you guys should talk about this. You guys should be aligned, and who's contributing what. And I'm not saying because you have a difference of opinion or contribution of resources to that partnership, it's not going to work. But you should understand, well, what is each person bringing to the table? Because as soon as the guy that wants to go all in asks the other guy to work nights or weekends on it, he's going to go, no, this is why I started this. I'm not going down that road.
Yep.
And so you just got to air that stuff out early. And then I think the solutions become pretty obvious. So they were kind of scratching their heads about which direction should we take a business. And so write down what you're good at and what you want to contribute, what resources you have. And then I think the solution space becomes a little bit more narrow and becomes more clear on where you can put some energy and focus behind. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Does that help provide?
No, that's great. And I was just thinking about this too. Like, so we talk about this a lot in mastermind groups and stuff in terms of like hiring people and understand people's personalities. And I think in a partnership, both of the partners also need to go take personality profile tests and understand what their personality profiles are. Maybe if they're implementing like the EOS type stuff, they should figure out whether they're a visionary or an integrator and that sort of thing, and figure out, just maybe they don't even know, but it's a good idea to sort of now know this, that like, okay, maybe, because there have been some people that have come and gone through some of the masterminds I've been in, and there was like one partnership and they realized they were both kind of visionaries, but they're still partners to this day. But that helped them decide, well, I need to be a visionary in this part of the business, and you're the visionary in this part of the business, and I'll be the integrator over here and you be the integrator over here. And they're still partners today. They figured out their places in that business, and they're not crossing paths and stepping on each other's toes now.
Yep. Yeah. And understanding the visionary integrator role was a big light bulb moment for me too. I played the integrator role in our business. The other partners were very visionary. And so just identifying with, hey, this is my role, and these are the characteristics that I tend to lean towards, and what they tend to lean towards really helped us understand, like, okay, like here's how we work together, or here's where we're going to have some friction, and here's how we overcome that as partners.
Yes. There will always be friction. And like you said before, you got to write stuff down. I remember a couple years ago, I did a big deal with a friend of mine, and we're still friends to this day. We still do deals together. But this particular deal, we had at the beginning written out how our profit splits were going to be on this particular deal, and it was a pretty big deal. And it took a long time to do this deal. And when we got towards the end, when we did the final split, we sold everything. We were done. We had sold the last kind of piece of this pie, and we were done. And I went and took distribution out of the LLC. And then all of a sudden, my partner's like, "What'd you just take that money out of there for?" I was like, "Well, that's my share of that. Like this is what we agreed to, and are you ready to close down this LLC? You don't want to keep it rolling, whatever." And then he was like, "Well, I was the understanding that I was going to get X% of that." And I'm like, "Well, you got this over here and I got this over here. Like here, it's all written down right here." And we went back to the document and he looked at it and he was like, "No, you're right. I guess I just in my mind had a different, over the course of the last 18 months, like my thought of what this would look like kind of changed." And I I felt bad because it's like, okay, well, we weren't on the same page. Like, but he's like, look, I mean, it's here in writing. So I gave him, like, I was like, all right, well, here, I'll give you a little bit of this, and then I'll get this. And we kind of compromised a little bit. And he was like, okay, that's cool. Sounds good. You know, I didn't have to do that. I could have been like, nope, this is what the document says. This is what we're doing. And screw you. But I was like, no, okay, I'll give you a little bit of this. But guess what? Like, not even, I don't know, 8 months later, we had another kind of similar deal fall into our lap. And I was like, hey, you want to do this one? And we laid it out ahead of time. You get this, I get this, we'll do this, I'm going to do this. And it worked out perfectly. And we still like are, you know, we haven't done any other big deals since then, but it's like, hey, we're still friends. We're still ready to do another deal. We didn't stab each other in the back. There was a misunderstanding. Fortunately, we had everything in writing. And there was no question about that, but it was more of a perception of what they thought it would be. But we're cool to this day. I just saw him last weekend. So
yeah.
So
and to me, it's like you can still change things, right? You wrote it down and you decided it doesn't feel right because there was some misunderstanding, and that's okay. Like a communication gap is at least a two-party occurrence. Like nothing happens in a vacuum with just one person. Like, well, you misunderstood it. You didn't read it. Like, well,
right.
We wrote it down, but maybe we didn't articulate it properly, or maybe the words weren't right where you understood it the same that I understood.
Yeah.
It. That's okay.
Yep.
And that's good. That's good for you guys that you're able to still do deals together, and you know, like find the common ground and keep moving forward.
Right, for sure, definitely. So now that you've kind of transitioned, you transitioned out of that partnership, right? You learned some things along that way. So you mentioned now that you're helping people out, like with their deals and the marketing. So how'd you get into that? Like, why did you decide to do that? And we're always evolving, right? So why don't you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So there are a few things that were influential. One is, so I'll let the cat out of the bag. I'm helping real estate investors with TV advertising, which is a great lead source for seller leads. And so how did we get there? So we scaled our business to 200 deals a year, and TV advertising had a huge impact on that growth. And I'm a big proponent of TV advertising for real estate investors. I wanted to participate in that real estate investor community and just help people in that circle. Mm-hmm. It's a cool group of people. I like working with real estate investors. We're like-minded. A lot of people are growth-oriented, kind of fundamental principles of how the world works. We see eye to eye in that. So I wanted to figure out a way to help them and to give back. And I considered things like lending, different ways of helping them out, scaling their operations, SOPs. And I was like, the most exciting thing for me is closing deals. So like, how can I help them close more deals? Like, because that's just got some fun wow factor and sizzle factor to it.
Sure.
Yeah. And I kept going back to TV as the number one way for people to do that. And I also feel like it's the most often overlooked lead channel for people that aren't doing it.
Yep.
And I was like, I got to spread the word on this. I got to help them out. I've learned a lot in the industry. We spent millions in advertising. And so I've learned a lot along the way on how to manage ads, how to manage agencies, how to communicate, how to buy right, how to dial in the right message for your TV ad. But I can also speak to all the trials and tribulations of a real estate investor who's growing their business, because I was front and center with a lot of that as we experience all the growing pains. So, I'm also a little bit of a shoulder to cry on and to lean on and a resource for, hey, I've got this constraint, I've got this problem, and I feel like that's just not something that a lot of people can offer to the real estate community. So I'm just super excited about being able to help people out in that avenue. helping them get more deals. So
Yeah. TV is kind of cool. It's always intrigued me. I do a lot of YouTube stuff for my business, a lot of YouTube stuff. I've been doing video content for years, but never really thought about getting into TV, although my new brand is more national, so it probably cost me a fortune to do TV to try to target the people I want to target. Like, but for someone who's like a local investor in their market, like, I mean, TV is great. I've seen a lot of people do really good with it. And just like any other marketing channel, it has its ebbs and flows and its seasonality and things like that. So what, in the terms of TV, I mean, what would you say, who's probably the best fit for that? Like, who would benefit most from TV ads, and like, what would they expect to like spend in any given market? I mean, it's based on market size and all that stuff. So do you have any like quick tips on that?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So ideally, you've got some momentum, you've got a brand, you're doing some deals, maybe 1 or 2 deals a month. And you've got kind of the nuts and bolts to running a real estate investment business. You don't need a team. You don't need gajillions of dollars to close on all the deals, but you need to know how to handle a lead, how to talk to a seller, how to, handle a hot lead and make the most amount of money possible from good opportunities.
Yep.
That's kind of the crux of it, because you don't want to just pour gasoline out on something that's not burning, right? And
Sure.
I'm a big advocate. TV advertising is your gasoline. So if you got a little flame burning, we'll put some gasoline on it and it'll burn hotter. But if there's not much burning, or it's not burning at all, your gasoline's not going to help. Or maybe it puts the fire out. I don't know.
Yeah, I would almost think that, just like I understand with doing YouTube stuff, right, is that people that watch your content and consume your content see you as an authority. Whether you're the best expert on that thing or not, it doesn't matter. They see you as the authority on that, and they have an expectation that, hey, I see this guy on TV. Obviously, he must know what he's doing. He's advertising on TV. Let me call him about selling my house. And if you're a newbie investor who really doesn't have a lot of experience in doing deals, you're going to get these calls and you're going to kind of look like an idiot, because you're going to stumble and fumble and not be able to fulfill the expectation of the person on the other end.
Exactly. So that's the ideal person is somebody who knows how to answer the phones and handle good leads, because they're going to come. From there, we handle all the end-to-end management of your TV ads. So we'll set you up with scripts, the production, buy all the spots, negotiate at great rates. And so from your perspective, it would just look like record a video with a production company. So it's A+ quality, audio's good, the video's good, and then we air the ads for you. And, depending on your market, $5,000 to $10,000 in ad spend per month is going to take you pretty far. Mm-hmm. And you're going to start to see some benefit from that. And like you said, though, there's also some ancillary benefits of being on TV. It's kind of funny, because I think a lot of people look at TV from a consumer side. And they go, wow, this TV station vetted this local business. Brad, he must really do great business because he's on my local Fox station. And, not to discredit the advertisers, but if your money is green, they'll let you air the ad. And, they're not going to allow like just anything to air on their station, because they've got a reputation to uphold. But what I mean by that is there's a lot of authority and brand authority and presence that comes with just being on TV. And the consumer perceived value of Brad being on TV is way higher than the actual cost.
Yep. The
consumer looks at that and goes, man, Brad's got a really awesome business. He's on TV. And Brad might have put, a few $1,000 behind a TV ad, and he's getting some good results by it. And so there's a big disconnect there. And that's really the opportunity that real estate investors have. And so we're doing things that are maybe a little bit unconventional, like airing on like TV stations that are only aired over rabbit ears. like linear TV type stuff.
Yeah.
Not jumping on YouTube TV. You're not going on to the Golf Channel. You're not going on to ESPN.
Right.
You're getting in front of the grandma and grandpas who have their rickety old house to sell.
Yep.
And so you got to approach those people, where they're at in their living rooms, and they're on the stations that they're watching.
I think that's the number one. Anybody who's doing marketing, like to whether you're marketing for real estate or anything, you have to understand your audience, who that person is, what they like to eat, what they do, where they live. Like, you need to know their avatar, as they say. And the more you know their avatar, the better you know the avatar, the better you can be at targeting your message to that person. And if you can target your specific message to that person in the right time, your marketing will be much better. You'll get much better results than if you're just sort of like blasting it out. It's like, have you ever gotten a Facebook ad for a company that's like, I laugh about these sometimes. I got a Facebook ad for like a drain cleaning company in Minnesota. And I'm like, hey guys, you might want to like check your targeting, because I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm not in Minnesota. Like, I'm not your customer,
Yeah. Yeah. I think I got one the other day. We were talking about Traeger grills over 4th of July. And I got some ad served to me for these super custom grills somewhere in the South. I looked at it, I'm like, you can't ship this thing. Like,
Right.
This is like a very local specialized product that you're making for people, who knows where, Louisiana or Texas or something like that. Like,
Right.
You're serving the end to the wrong person. Like, I'm going to make a brisket a couple times a year. You're looking for the people that are making thousands of pounds of brisket, maybe for one event.
Correct.
Every weekend. Like, we're just so far apart. So
Yep.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. You got to know that audience, and not just like to the barbecue level, because me and whoever's buying these mega grills or smokers, we are both interested in barbecues. You got to distinguish that like really deep down.
Right.
Very targeted and very specialized in approaching those audiences, because the message is different. The delivery is different. Where you meet those people, the medium is different. So yeah, I'm right there with you, Brad.
Yeah, and you've learned that, right? Through scaling a big business and doing a lot of TV advertising and working with all the TV companies and working with vendors that do the same thing that, you're doing now. You've learned strengths and weaknesses, and from that over time, and realize like, who to talk to, like how to negotiate, who to target, like there's a lot of mechanics behind it that you just don't even know until you get into something like that, which is why, brokers of that exist, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think a lot of people look at third-party services with a little bit of skepticism.
Sure.
And I think the more that you can relate, speak the lingo, and build that, to your point, that trust and authority, it just helps solidify that, hey, we know what we're doing. We're offering honestly a super discounted service for the value that we're going to provide you to the business. It's okay. We got you, is kind of the message I want to get out there too, is we'll help you along the way. And I'm sure you feel similarly. Every service provider, you got to charge a certain dollar amount.
Yep.
But the value provided back to the person buying that service in the right hands, it's going to be enormous compared to the cost.
Oh, for sure. And anyone doing anything should be focused on their ROAS, right? A return on ad spend. I talk about that all the time. And that's why, like me specifically, I'm doing the probate marketing management for people, right? I'm only doing it in the probate niche. Like, if you want to be in the probate stuff, like, I'm your guy, because I've been doing this for years. I know who to target, where to target, what to say to them, when to send the stuff to them, what ads to run to them, what ads work, what ads don't work. Like, I've learned all of that through the School of Hard Knocks in my own company, right? Now I'm like, well, let me help other people do this, right?
And think about all of the money that somebody would have to spend to learn the lessons that you've learned.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot of money and a lot of hard lessons. And most people, they would probably quit. They'd bash their head up against the wall long enough. They're like, I don't this probate stuff, I don't get it.
Yep.
I don't get that. And they drop out. And so being there to help them out along the way, and they don't have to learn those hard lessons. They don't have to bash their head against the wall. Like,
Right.
that's the goal. Let those people help you.
Yeah. I remember when I'm on my second executive assistant now. She helps me with all of our mail lists and all that stuff, manages that for us. And my other one and she got another job and left. She's great, like left on good terms or whatever. So I hired my new one, and I'm training her, and I like let her do the direct mail. And here in Atlanta, I market my probate marketing list here in Atlanta is like, I send like 30,000 postcards a month. Like, it's a lot of cards. And one month we ordered the postcards, and she felt so bad about this, but she messed up the list, the spreadsheet, and got the names and the addresses like out of whack.
Oh, no.
And all of a sudden we were getting return mail, and like our response rate that month was awful. And I'm like, why are we not getting any phone calls? And she's getting stacks and stacks. And then we realized, like, oh, somehow when she was doing the spreadsheet that we used to like track our mail, she messed it up, and she felt so bad. I'm like, look, it's okay. Like, but for me, I'm like, crap, I just burned like $10,000, and just wasted it and just dumped it down the drain. But at this point, I've been doing this a long time. I'm like, well, it sucks. Like, it sucks to lose 10 grand, but learning lesson here. Okay, let's put in a process that let's just double check the list each time when we're done, and just spot check them and make sure nothing gets out of whack again. And now she does that every month as part of the process, right?
Probably a mistake that she'll never make again.
She'll never make it again. And it wasn't out of her pocket. It was out of my pocket. And she felt so bad. And I'm like, it's okay. But she's like, I just cost you like $10,000. I'm like, it's okay. I've made mistakes too. Like, it's okay. But what did we learn? Okay, how do we not do that in the future, right? So you've learned through the School of Hard Knocks. I have, like, there's a value to that, right?
Yeah. And the worst thing to do in that scenario is to fire somebody over it. Because you know what? Right. The next person that's going to walk in is going to do that on their first or second or third direct mail order too. And you're going to go through the same, oh, what the heck? This person screwed up the spreadsheet too. So
yep.
You gotta have enough degrees of freedom to let people fail a little bit, controlled way.
Yep.
And learn from that, and they'll be better because of it. I guarantee you, she'll never make that mistake again.
No. And now she's great at, like, I mean, that happened 2 years ago, right? Like, now, I mean, she's been doing it every month for 2 years now. Like, we're good. Right? She's got it figured out. She can do it in her sleep now, So I'm not worried about that anymore. And we just double check, and I'll go in personally every few months, and I'll just spot check the list myself. And okay, yeah, looks good. She's doing her job. We're all good. So that's so cool, man. Well, if someone wanted to get a hold of you and is interested in learning more about TV, you already kind of defined who that investor might be, right? It's probably, if you're like a brand new investor, it's probably not the right fit for your business right now. But if someone want to get a hold of you, what would the best way for them to get a hold of you be?
Yeah, so 2 ways. You can follow us on Instagram. We're hellopro.tv, or you can just go straight to my website, which is www.thehellopro.com.
Okay.
And you can just book a call direct with me. I do free consultations with you. So if you're going back and forth about, is now the right time? I'll do a quick assessment with you to make sure we're a good fit. I'm not just going to take on anybody to work with us.
Right.
But you can just book a call with me direct on our website. So thehellopro.com is where you get that, and just book it.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes for sure. So it's thehellopro.com.
You got it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Luke, I think we've kind of run out of time here. I know you got to get off for the weekend, hang out with the kids. I got to go take my son to hockey stick time here in a minute. And I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your wisdom and knowledge, and looking forward to chatting with you more in the future. And maybe I'll make it up I've been to Minnesota a few times. I've been back in my corporate days. I went to one of our clients was in Minneapolis. I'd go to Minneapolis every year. So
yeah. Hey, you're still welcome here, Brad.
I'll come in the summer.
Yeah. Yes, please do. Please do. Yeah. Yeah. And thanks for having me here. It's been a great pleasure talking to you. And yeah. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. And yeah, thanks again.
Awesome, Luke. Well, thanks for coming on. And guys, like I mentioned before, if you're interested in our done-for-you marketing package in the probate niche, we manage this for real estate investors and real estate agents. Have been doing this for years. Or if you want Luke to help you out with TV ads, give Luke a call. But thanks for listening to another one of our episodes, and enjoy your day, Luke. Thanks for coming on.